G.H.O.S.T Productions, bringing real adventures to audio. Right. I've been looking forward to this one. Shall I introduce this one?
Yes, you can introduce this one.
Marvellous. Greetings, people of the internet, and welcome to the gathering of haunted oral stories together, otherwise known as the G.H.O.S.T Podcast. Episode 3, The Enfield Poltergeist.
So we're joined this week by the wonderful Abi.
Hello.
So I have a question for you, Abi.
Go on.
Are you a believer or are you a skeptic?
Oh, I'm a believer.
Fabulous.
Then I
Hands
saw her
down.
face. Now I'm a believer.
I just knew you were going to sing that. I just knew it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's. I've done that one. We can tick that one off. Okay then, Abby.
Hi.
I have a question and I have a request, which is not going to be in that order. I'm going to request of you to tell us one of your own personal spooky experiences. But I'm going to ask you, what theme tune would you like over the top of it? You can have anything you like.
I don't have a clue. You choose. You work your magic.
Okay, cool. I'm feeling something called the Omega Factor. It was like X-Files, but back in the 70s. Trust me, it's banging. So, Abby, tell us something spooky, babe.
Okay. I'm not used to being this way round. It feels really weird. This is why I'm usually the host. Hello.
And I'll just sit here and do this.
So, I used to be in the Navy, and I was towards the last couple of years in the Navy. I was based on HMS Victory, which is a museum in Portsmouth, but it's still counted as an active ship. So every morning we had to go to the front of the ship through these little see-through doors at the front of the ship and raise a flag. And most mornings, out of my peripheral vision, I would see a female in a long grey coat with high heel shoes on. Just standing there. Like 3 days out of 5, she'd be there. And I told this to one of my Navy friends that I was talking to a couple of days ago. Because a lot of people, when you mention stuff like that, they're like, oh no, it was somebody on board the ship. No, it wasn't open to the public at this time. There was only 5 members of ship's company on the ship at the time, all of which were wearing white shirts and black trousers. No long grey coats. And he informed me that this said coast had been caught on camera. And it's on YouTube. And I don't know what to make of this, but because it's not very often you can kind of confirm or like be like, well, here's some video footage. It doesn't happen very often. And my brain is still trying to comprehend this because I saw her for like a year and a half. Yeah. So there we go. That's one of them. I have many, but that's the one I'm going to tell today.
We like that spooky story.
I like that. The thing is, I've seen the said video that Abby's actually talking about. And
I've seen the screenshot, yeah.
And it's really weird because it's like the camera sort of tracks around and you do see this figure, but the figure does literally just walk into a wall. Literally, and just...
Yeah, there's a bulkhead there, yeah.
Literally just walks into the wall. And it's quite complex because it's a solid figure. It's not like a mist, it's not a mist or anything like that.
But she's because on the video it says they think that it's Nelson, who obviously died aboard the ship's wife, because she used to visit him all the time. And if you do watch the video, the way she's like holding herself, she's like got her hands behind her back, and it almost looks as if she's like talking to somebody, like on a bench or something. She's slightly hunched over, but she's got quite an air of I'm the captain's missus about her, you know, because she's got her hands behind her back, and it's like, but then she just walks off into a wall. But it's like the camera's panning round and you can see that they haven't seen it, and then they go back and it's like, it's just, yeah, it's really
and
weird.
the thing is, you can't even say that it's an optical illusion either, because sometimes when you have haunted footage on, especially on YouTube, some of the camera footage is really low quality, and a lot of it is it's almost motion blur. There's no actual motion blur with this because the camera's moving too slowly. It's actually it's like a panoramic shot, and this figure is there and starts walking, and just there's not even you can't even say that it was any kind of optical illusion because there is nothing to illuge into.
That is like the only part where anybody can get into that compartment as well is where we used to raise the flag, which is like hundreds and hundreds of feet above a dry dock. So there's no way you can get into that compartment, like, and the way she walked is a wooden bulkhead, like. It's the pointy end of the ship. So essentially, like, your Jack and Rose. It's the Jack and Rose moment at the front of the ship where basically the flag goes up is where Jack and Thingy stand. But, like, it's the under bit of that. So it's not a wide part of the ship. So obviously, she's walked and just walked into Portsmouth Dockyard somewhere. Like, it's just gone. Strange.
Which on a very mortal level is sort of weird, because why would she want to walk into a wall? You know, reasons.
Reasons.
Why not?
So, why?
But this is the thing, though, because obviously, like, that ship, as much as they say most of it's original, some of it's been swapped and changed over time. Like, they can only do certain things to it. So there might have been a gangplank there, like, during Nelson's time.
Very possible.
So she might have been walking off the ship where the gangplank used to be. So
right. See, that would make more sense.
Yeah,
because that figure in that video does actually walk off. It's not just a meander. Walks off with purpose. You know. So really, it really is. It's a very sentient image.
She ducks as well, and if you've been on HMS Victory, to get inside, the doors aren't massive, so even I have to duck to get inside. So whether she's ducking to go out.
Like I said, I've never been on the Victory. I've been to the submarine museum, and
I need to take you to the Victory.
Me being 6'2", built like a brick outhouse, trying to get inside a Royal Navy submarine. It's probably one of the funniest things you will ever see in your life, because I have to sort of be slotted in sideways, but I wanted to see because it was all sort of, it was literally walking down the corridor like a crab, like that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So.
Oh my, that was a very good story. I really did enjoy that.
I do like that. I love that. I do.
So,
okay.
What we do on the podcast, Abby, is I go through quite a famous case and then we talk about it and we give our opinions on it. So if you don't know about the Enfield Poltergeist, then that is completely fine, because that's probably better. Because then you can just, give me your initial thoughts on it.
First time.
And this is a case that happened in North London. So Abby's sort of area there. So 284 Green Street in Enfield. So it was August 1977, and Peggy Hodgson was living there with her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny and Billy. So this case is perhaps one of the most popularised hauntings in English history. It's been used in the Hollywood blockbuster film The Conjuring 2, and it's also the subject of many documentaries and the Sky miniseries starring Timothy Spall and Matthew McFadden. But the real story is quite an interesting one. So Peggy first reported seeing some paranormal activity when she saw furniture moving on its own. So she was downstairs in the property And she heard her daughters upstairs. So naturally, as a mum, she went upstairs to investigate what they were doing. So she found them in the bedroom, and they spun her this tale that the chest of drawers had started moving towards the door of the bedroom. Now, naturally, as a parent, you wouldn't believe them, would you? You'd be like, yeah, no, that's not happened. But then it did it again while she was in the room. So she saw it. So she was like, right, okay, I'm living in a haunted house. So after that, knocking phenomena started. So knocking phenomena is quite, well, normal for a poltergeist to do. Would you not agree, Matt? Would you agree that poltergeists knock on things a lot?
Yes, I would say that those auditory phenomena, or it is very common, because poltergeist is literally German for noisy ghost. I mean, it sounds almost self-explanatory when I put it like that, but they do have this innate strength to be able to communicate in far more physical ways than other spirits. In fact, the poltergeist was actually a recorded demon.
Demonology on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, it was going to turn up eventually.
Yeah. Oh, a bit of demonology. So Peggy was so scared by the knocking phenomena and what she'd seen, she sought help first from a neighbour, but then she actually called the police about it. So Police Constable Carolyn Heaps arrived at the property, and while she was in the property, she saw a chair move on its own. So I'll read the quote out for what she said. So it came off the floor, maybe half an inch or so, I would say, and I saw it slide off to the right about 3.5 to 4 feet before it came to rest. So I think if a police officer's seen it, there probably is something there. Because I don't think a police officer would lie.
I was going to say at this point, because your previous, because you are,
I'm an ex-police officer.
You are formerly a uniformed police officer. If that was you now, in these enlightened day and age, say you personally,
I'd witnessed that, I would have popped my body camera on. Because it records, your body camera records 30 seconds before you press it as well. So I'd recorded it and been like, see, it actually did happen, I'm not lying.
I just want to write to the police and just say, look, has anyone got any spooky body cam footage, for science?
Yep. Said for science purposes and your enjoyment. So after that, the family started to claim that they heard disembodied voices, loud noises, the children's toys would be thrown all over the place, chairs would be overturned in the kitchen, and perhaps the most memorable phenomena, if you are familiar with the case, is the fact that the children apparently levitated. There's pictures of that, but to some people, it does look like Janet was just jumping off the bed. To others, they'd say she was being hoisted in the air by this demon thing. But it depends where you stand on it, I suppose. We'll now move on to the involvement of our favourite people, the Society of Psychical Research.
Hooray!
So we talked about them last week when we talked about Borley Rectory with James and the infamous Harry Price, who Matt also loves. However, the Enfield Haunting brings to the fore one of his other favourite people, Maurice Grosse, and also a man called Guy Lyon Playfair.
Yes.
So they were sort of the chief investigators of the Enfield Haunting, I would say.
They were, yes.
Playfair actually wrote a book on it. I haven't read it, but I would like to read it. He wrote a book called This House is Haunted, The True Story of the Poltergeist. So even though Guy in his book said that he believed it was an entity that was responsible for the haunting, he did often question himself and doubted the fact that the children could have been playing tricks. So, there is that idea, because I'll get onto it in a bit, but the kids were caught doing a few things in the house that would destabilise the poltergeist itself.
Yes, or at least it would bring the validity into question, shall we say.
So the Enfield Haunting gained so much notoriety that the incredibly famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren visited in 1978. However, unlike The Conjuring 2, their involvement was pretty limited. However, they did say that the haunting was put down to a supernatural cause. But they weren't, like in the film, like you see in The Conjuring, they weren't there staying in the house and saving the kids and saving the family. They just went for a visit, you know, and they concluded it was definitely a ghost. So, during the investigations, Janet, who was the second eldest child and the one that the poltergeist sort of focused on a lot more than the others, was actually caught on camera bending spoons and trying to bend a metal bar. So that kind of brings into question what else was she doing? But, you know, it is what it is. Maurice Gross, actually your favourite person, found her banging the ceiling with a broom handle at one stage. And then she was also trying to hide his video recorder from him as well.
Yes. So there was I suppose in a way it was a stint of trying to replicate these. I mean, let's talk from the POV that this was actually all very much a real case. The one thing that Morris noted himself was that you've got a situation that is completely beyond anything that anyone could possibly have experienced before. You've got all this. I mean, literally the attention that they were getting. There was press. There was people everywhere. The whole case turned into this sort of a media circus, as it were. You know, it's the kind of thing that if Twitter and everybody else had got their hands on it, it'd be all over the internet. But and they were kids, so naturally they are lapping this up. So they do try and they did try and replicate things at certain points because they were loving the attention, absolutely loving it.
Of course they were.
However, that does not detract from the fact that both Margaret and Janet, to this day, still the grief. When you see them talking about it, the grief of which you can sense as they're talking, that's not acting. You can't act that.
No, they've definitely experienced something in the house.
There was something very real and traumatic, but like we said, they were kids. Yeah, they were kids in this almost unthinkable adventure. Really, I mean, a frightening adventure nonetheless. But
you know, you've made it when Ed and Lorraine Warren come from America to visit your house, don't you?
Yeah.
You know you've made it then.
You guys are right. You can't go no further. Yeah.
I've done research all over the world. I never charged for anything I did. What happened wasn't good. I needed to help them.
When Ed and Lorraine come to the house, to me it felt like some sort of comfort had arrived for the first time.
But Janet also professed to being possessed with the voice of a man called Bill Wilkins. So he's quite integral in the film The Conjuring, but he did actually die in the house. So he actually is a real person, did actually die in the house. And Janet used to speak for him and he used to take over her voice. However, Playfair did say that Bill displayed a habit of suddenly changing the topic of a conversation, which is a habit that Janet also did very, very often.
Because, I mean, that part of things... The voice... The thing is, the voice phenomenon, actually talking through Janet, that's... how can I put this?
Quite hard to replicate, I would say.
It is because what was reported to have happened is that these voices were coming from Janet, and so Morris and co got a specialized piece of kit, a laryngograph, I think it was called. It was a very old piece of kit, and basically it measures speech patterns in the throat. And when Janet was, Bill was using Janet's body. Yeah, let's go down this road. Bill was using Janet's body as the means to communicate with Morris, right? But she wasn't using her actual vocal cords. She was using the part of the larynx just above it, you see, which comes into play when you lose
It's
your
quite
voice.
disturbing when you listen to
It's
it.
very croaky, and that's the bit that's the voice that you would produce if you lost your voice, because that's the bit that takes over, you see. So it's a question of was it, but it's not a part of the body, the part of the throat that you naturally use. I mean, you could possibly use it for a few minutes. She went on hours and hours and hours and hours. And
it was concluded, wasn't it, that you couldn't sustain that without completely wrecking your voice.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. As a side note, is that they called in a ventriloquist to try and disprove what Janet was doing, and it was a very famous ventriloquist by the name of Ray Allen, who, if you know classic TV. He was the part of the double actor. Emily's just shaking her head now, probably a little before your time. He used to have a wonderful puppet called Lord Charles, who was always absolutely lovely young lady. He played this rather very upper class, piss out of his mind playboy, especially. But it was very funny, very, very. But he was Ray Allen himself was a very, very clever man.
Oh yes. Shall I explain what you're going to do? No, I'll tell them. I can tell them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, a demonstration in the art of extrasensory perception. Now, in order to do this demonstration of the extrasensory perception, I'm going to...
It's extrasensory perception.
May I ask you to say something?
No?
Then don't, there's a good chap. You've got a damn good job. Take care of this.
And he got called in, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's definitely ventriloquism, but it's very specialised." And Morris, in Janet's defence, said, "Okay, if any of you lots can replicate this, I will give you £1,000."
And back in 1978,
that was a small. That was a king's
money.
ransom. That was a king's ransom.
And I think it's also important to bear in mind that at this stage, Janet was 11 years old.
She was, yes.
So I don't think she will have been able to replicate that, because, I mean, what 11-year-old will sit there for hours on end just like making a really deep voice?
And they did those wonderful experiments whereby they filled the mouth with water, taped over the mouth, and yet the voice was still coming through very clearly. Which
see, that's very
that's something that ventriloquists are just like, nah, man, no, yeah, I ain't doing that.
How would you do that then?
Dematerialise it one night in there.
You would dematerialise it?
Yes.
How do you do that then?
I don't know, but I'll tell you somehow, don't I?
Don't know how you do it?
No. A gift.
It's a gift, is it? Well, surely you should know how to do it.
There is a blind I did. I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
Yeah, it's. I personally am of the belief that the Enfield Poltergeist is a real poltergeist, and it did haunt the Hodgson family for 2 years. However, the haunting did abruptly stop in 1979, but that isn't uncommon for poltergeist activity to just stop like that. It does happen.
Mm-hmm.
It might come back one day, but who knows? But Peggy Hodgson lived in that house until she died.
Mm-hmm.
She refused to leave the house.
Well, it was her house. I mean, the irony is that she's reportedly supposed to have died in the same
chair as Bill Wilkins.
As Bill Wilkins, yeah.
So Conjuring 3.
I know, Conjuring 3 was The Devil Made Me Do It. Very good
Conjuring
film.
3 wasn't
Conjuring
as
4.
Conjuring 3 wasn't as good as Conjuring 2.
Conjuring 4.
Conjuring 4.
Conjuring 4. Oh, a man can dream.
They are
Coming
actually
soon
making
from
one, I
TT
think.
Production.
Yeah, so Abby, we've got
Won't
to
be
do
giving
the
Abby
Conjuring
ideas.
4.
Abby's going to be like, I'm going to write a script now. She'll be coming off this, she'll be like, script writing.
Abby's going to write a script. That's probably going to write it.
Who can get there quicker? That's the
The way,
question.
Abby, the way I write.
So that brings me to the end of my little tale. So is there anything else you'd like to add about Morris, your main man, the love of your life? You know?
It's a little bit of hero worship, dear. Morris Gross was a very clever man. He was kind of like, if you watch interviews with him, you go on. I suggest this. Go on YouTube and watch interviews with him. Very amiable, very pleasant man.
A lovely man,
but very clever. He was literally an inventor. That was he was another one, an engineer. He loved making things. What's interesting to note about the Enfield Poltergeist specifically is that it came about at a really, really sad point of his life.
It did, didn't it?
Because he had, I think he had 3 kids, 2 daughters and 1 son.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've got it written down here somewhere. Give me just a second.
It was Janet, his daughter.
It was Janet, his daughter.
I think she was 19. Yeah.
Yeah, she was killed in a motorcycle accident in 1976. And what was purported to have drove him on is that at one point he thought that it was his daughter that was trying to contact him from, the great hereafter through Janet and through this medium. That turned out not to be the case. But I mean, can you imagine the sheer desperation that man must have felt? That he's trying to find these answers in life. He's trying to find some comfort and some solace, and it turns out not to be what he hoped it would be. I mean, I couldn't even begin to imagine.
I couldn't imagine the pain he was feeling. But what I do find very sort of coincidental, to the point where it's not a coincidence, is the fact that the girl that he wanted to help the most was called Janet.
Yes. This is true. There was a very parental feel to the whole thing, because Peggy, who was the mum, was a single mum. Yeah, the father had gone off and left
with a new woman.
Yeah, and nothing's to be seen of him again. So here comes this very stable, almost wizard-like figure, and this is the thing. In the modern equivalent, Morris did have that sort of wizard quality to him. He knew about things that go bump in the night, and he knew about gadgets, and he knew about mysteries, and he knew how to contact them. But also, he approached it on a very human level. He was very fond of the kids, and they were very fond of him. And it was very avuncular, and it's almost a wholesome dimension to the whole thing. So I mean, here you have this poltergeist who is supposed to be Bill Wilkins, who is angry about everything because he's dead. He's just. I mean, when you boil it down, Bill Wilkins is just a very, very bitter, angry old man. Angry,
doesn't help
old
that
man.
The story goes that he did push his family away, so died alone and blah de blah de blah, and that's why he was angry.
So well, that's the thing, and so the strength of that bitterness that he took with him was probably the catalyst. Was the energy core, if you like, but drawing on more energy from the two, because you got to remember because it wasn't just Margaret and Janet; it was Margaret, Janet, and the little brother whose name Billy. But it was always focused on the two girls. It never touched little Billy.
It didn't touch Johnny either, really. They were just living in it.
Exactly. So it was this strange combination of energies and people and surroundings and situations. But Morris went into it, and he did say that he had this sense of wonderment about everything. He absolutely adored the reactions that he got, and because especially when he started talking to Billy, he said that he was just you could have knocked him over with a feather, and he must have spent a fortune on tape, because tape was not cheap.
He had like
then.
hundreds of hours, didn't he, of audio, video. He was like so invested into it.
And I'd love to get my hands on it. Love to.
You'll just have a massive trip in the archives one day. But like,
I will. Yeah,
he's been in the archives for an entire year. Where is he? Like,
He's took a tent with him and everything.
So, what did you think of the Enfield Haunting?
I was just saying, should we pick on Abi now, sir?
Yeah, pick on Abi. What did you think of it, Abi?
I think, like, you do need to factor in the fact that if there's 3 kids, they're going to be messing around as well. So I personally think it's a mixture of 2. Whether they've gone, oh, the poltergeist is getting reactions, so we're going to make more stuff happen. If that makes any sense. Because the poltergeist is getting all the attention, so they're like, oh no, let's like hook it up so these chairs fall off and stuff, just so that they get more attention. That's my believing. You got to think I've got a kid, and I generally think I'm waiting. Well, he scared the living daylights out of me the other day. We were on a Zoom, so he watches Most Haunted now, and now he knows what poltergeists are. And I was sat here on a Zoom. All this is doing is just proving that kids will emulate stuff like that they've seen to get attention. So I was sat on the Zoom, and he knocked on the door, and he ran off. And I was like, what the fuck? So I looked out, and he wasn't there. And then he knocked on the door, and then he laid on the floor, and I opened up the door, and I kid you not, I can't remember if either of you were on it, I had a heart attack.
I did not see this.
I didn't see this.
Why was I not there?
Oh my god, I literally had to peel myself off the ceiling. It was like what a
ledge.
But he wouldn't have done that if he hadn't heard the whole like poltergeist knocking and like the knocking off the chairs, and I'm waiting for him to do it again, to be truthful. I know he will.
I'm surprised he's not done it tonight when you're doing this.
I'm waiting for it. Last time it was about 10 o'clock. That's why I kept looking out the door a minute ago, because I'm sure I heard him. That's my cat. Yeah, it was about 10 o'clock last time, which is why I didn't think it was him. So, all that's just saying is the fact that kids will try and take the attention. But I do believe there was a poltergeist, and they just there was more poltergeist activity because it wasn't poltergeist activity, but they made it out to be, if that makes any sense. Especially if it's a single mum. You know for a fact those kids are scheming. You know.
In the modern parlance, this is well sus.
Just get the feeling like Abi wouldn't be having any of this. She'd be like, nah, it's you lot.
No, but this is the thing. My child wouldn't like scream and stuff. He'd just be like, oh yeah, somebody knocked my telly over last night. Oh, great. Do you fancy telling me that? Like, he'd just be like, it's a ghost in my room. This is the thing. Our house is built on an old nunnery, so our house is haunted anyway, so it wouldn't surprise me if he has seen stuff and just not bothered to tell me, because he's like, all right, Dave. Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool. Crack on. All right, Margaret, how you doing, love?
All right, Dave.
All right, Dave. Right, Margaret. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if my kid would just be so blasé about it. Oh, there was a woman in white in my bedroom last night. Really? Yeah, she's called Janet.
You know what? You should just flat out ask him. Literally flat out, put the question to him, send me the audio, we'll put it in here.
In our house.
It was that video you sent the other day when you were saying poltergeist. I was like,
poltergeist.
a figure and someone threw it and knocked down a chair.
Do you remember what the
or
ghosts are called that throw things?
Poltergeist!
But yeah. But the whole voice throwing thing is freaky. Like,
especially with the water
Yeah.
and the tape and the
yeah, it's freaky. Yeah.
How did you feel discussing Morris? How did you feel about Chambers' love of Morris?
It doesn't surprise me.
No. Nothing about me surprises people anymore.
We've known you too long,
This is true.
Chambers.
This is very true. But it's nice to bring cases like this, but also personality. Because the thing is, back in the back in the 80s and the 90s, Morris, who bless him was still around. Morris didn't pass away until 2006. So in the 90s, there was this big upsurge in early paranormal shows. There was like the most terrifying ghosts caught on tape and that sort of thing. Strange but True. That was another show that he was on very regularly. And he was kind of like he was kind of still a household name in the 90s, but as society's kind of gone on, and we got cable, and we got Most Haunted, and we got Ghost Hunters, and we got everything else, all these personalities, they've kind of been sort of pushed aside, and they're sort of like these historical little footnotes, really. But I'll say if Morris was still around today, he'd rule. He'd have his own series.
Comic-Con.
We'd have him on the
Fielding
podcast.
Who? It'd be like Yvette Fielding who? We want Morris Gross.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is the truth. Actually, I get it. If I'm dead honest, I think Morris and Yvette Fielding would have been really great mates.
Yeah, I think they would have done.
I think they would. I think they would have. They would have worked together so well. It would have been funny because the way, especially the way that Yvette used to jump out of her skin, and even.
What do you mean used to? She still does it now.
She still does it
like,
now.
She's
Yes.
however many series in, she still does it now.
It just makes me laugh how she'd be like, ask them a question and then kind of like hide behind someone. She's brilliant. Ask them this, Hope.
There was one time. Is it Phil Wyman, who was their parapsychologist in series 2? He was forever telling to stop, shut up, and just thinking that would have been Morris. Well, you shut up.
Because I mean, in the early days, she was a screamer. Like she's a screamer now, but she was such a screamer in the early days. Like she'd hear like a floor creak, and she'd just be off for about 5 minutes, just screaming. Yeah. She'd be screaming.
I feel another Most Haunted fan episode coming on, folks.
I do too. While we're on the subject of Most Haunted, because obviously, Abby, you watch Most Haunted as well. Have you got a favourite episode of the ones you've watched?
I quite like the RAF based one.
I love that one.
And I also quite liked the Aldwych Underground Station.
Was it you that was saying the Coronation Street one where just like the barrel just
Oh my god. I said so, like, Noah's not watched a lot of episodes, and the two that he has watched are Wookiee Hole.
Love that word.
And that one. Both of which you got like the barrel rolling and then like the chair getting thrown around and like the nuclear bunker one I loved as well.
Yes, that was a good one. Yeah.
Basically, I like either military ones or ones that are in London.
And funny enough, they did do an Enfield, the actual house itself, in season 17, which unfortunately is not on bloody Amazon. Amazon Prime, get your together.
No, I right. So thinking back on my answer, the nuclear bunker's my favourite.
Yeah.
I think it sounds really cheesy, purely because of they had like a whole somebody committed suicide because they got found out that they were gay, and like, and then the chair moved, and because obviously I'm ex-military, when they were sat in the room and they were like, oh yeah, I can picture everybody behind the desk, because I've worked in that kind of environment, so I can full on picture what it would have been like. So yeah, nuclear bunker, hands down.
What about you, Chambers? What's your favourite?
Oh, Brannigan's Nightclub.
Oh,
from series
one, that
2,
one.
which is the first time you see. Well, not the first time, but it's the first time that one of Derek's possessions stuck in my mind. I mean, I know everyone loves the Drury Theatre.
Everyone loves Dick.
No, the Drury Lane one always.
The Drury Lane one, because he was
an actor.
He was jealous.
He tried
of my acting.
Jealous of my talent. He always was and he always will be. How dare he? How dare he? He is the lesser. He took my life.
For jealousy?
Yes.
What was he jealous of?
Of my acting.
So you were an actor?
I'm the principal.
You were an actor?
I'm a principal. Without me, it couldn't go on. I can't leave.
Why?
This wretch keeps me here. He's a wretch. A wretch. This belongs to me. You hear me? Belongs to me. No one else. No one else. Me. Godfrey Parks. Now, I will push and I will damage you. Get moving. Now. Who do you think you are? Get out. 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 Get out of here. Get out of here. Leave me. Leave me. Leave me. Get you away. Get you away.
Derek.
Get you away.
Derek.
Heaven.
Derek.
Hallelujah.
But yeah, I like Brannigan's. I liked the Top Castle. I like season 2.
Season 2 is a good season.
Season 2 for me really was, where they were really, really riding strong, and then series 3 to 6. Basically, it's the Derek era for me.
Yeah, the Derek era is something else.
Yeah,
It's something
it
else.
really is. It certainly is. Bless him. Another one. He died way too soon.
He did.
Poor old son. I mean, that cut me to the quick. That did when he passed away.
It did. I remember
couldn't believe
opening
that.
Facebook one day, and I was like, "Oh my god, Derek Carr is dead." I was like, "How can he be dead?"
I went back and watched the Ghost episode of Doctor Who.
It's a good episode. That very good episode.
This is all the cameos. Get them in.
Yeah, totally. My favourite episode of Most Haunted, which is kind of why I brought this question up, because next time on the podcast I will be discussing East Drive, and my favourite episode, well, there's more than one because they've done more than one investigation at East Drive, and they've done a Most Haunted Live with Paula Grady at East Drive, and Paula Grady on Most Haunted is quite frankly the funniest thing I have ever seen. Like at one point,
it was
he just
up with Eileen and Steve from bloody Coronation Street. Like
at one point, he literally he's had enough of this ghost in the monk or whatever in East Drive. He just charges back through the house, and he's like, "You want some?" I was like, "Oh my god!" And he was just proper going for this ghost. I was thinking, bloody hell, because this episode of East Drive, it's completely pitch black, and then Stuart and Carl fumbling around in the bedroom, they're getting scratched and burned and everything, and then downstairs they're getting knives thrown at them, and it's just the best episode thing I've ever seen. And Carl gets dragged up the stairs backwards by something, and it's just the most acted episode of Most Haunted I have ever seen in my life. That's East Drive, and that's what we're going to talk about next time, Chambers.
Also, on that case, you are totally in charge of that one, because that one I know very little about. So I'm a willing accomplice in all of this.
We're a very ghostly bunch. We do like a bit of a ghost story in this group, and we love a bit of Most Haunted. And I think we'll love a lot of drunk Most Haunted watch-togethers and talk about it together.
I think that'll be brilliant. Brilliant. I'd love to hear some ghost stories from Chelsea.
Well, do you know what? we're doing a Christmas special, Abby, and we're going to get a number of people on, and we're going to do like ghost stories around the campfire for Christmas.
I'm up for that.
Most
I have
excellent.
many to tell.
So we're all going to have our
10 years. You got to think 10 years in the Navy. Most of the time I was in Portsmouth as well.
So we're all going to sit.
And most of the time I was drunk, so I saw lots of things.
We're all going to sit with our nice like hot chocolate and our Christmas jumpers on, and we're all going to be festive.
Yeah, hot chocolate.
Special hot chocolate.
Jumpers that you can hear in audio.
I'll have my Christmas tree in the background. I'll have everything going on, and I'll be like, we'll put some little like jingle bells over the jingle, and it'll be fantastic. Good, always good. So
it just feels weird
because you're not asking the questions. You're being.
I'm not like.
You don't like it this way around. She's like, oh my god, I used to be like the host. I'm used to being the host.
But the thing is, we're going to have to get Abby back because Abby's got more than one story, and I want to hear.
Oh, she's going to come back to the Christmas special. We're going to have everybody back for the Christmas special.
Exactly. But, just drag people in, randomly. That's just how we roll.
Just drag them in, be like, you're coming in this week, right?
Send you the Zoom link. Anything tonight? No good.
Anyway, I'm glad you've enjoyed the time on the podcast. The Enfield Haunting is one of my favourite cases, but my all-time favourite case is the one that we're discussing next week, which is the East Drive case, and literally that's
I'm looking forward to because I get to be educated because this is one I don't know much about at all.
Oh, I can't wait for that. You can have a first listen.
I was just saying this is going to be my first, almost like a first experience. I'm even not going to watch that episode of Most Haunted just to be completely surprised. Yeah. So
you can watch it after, and then you can watch the film.
I'll probably watch it about 20 times after. Yeah, but I'm going to go into completely unknown territory.
You're just going to sit there and let me tell you a story.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are. But anyway, I've been Emily, he's been Matt, and she's been Abby.
I mean, I have, yes.
Yep, still Abby.
And Abby has been an absolute delight, my darling. Thank you so very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you all for listening to it. And I'll get it right this time, James.
Go on, you can do it.
The Gathering of Haunted Oral Stories Together podcast.
Yes! Results! And what have we been talking about tonight?
Enfield Haunting and Poltergeists. Honestly, just get Noah into the recording booth and just get him to say that, and then he can just put it in everything.
I've got the video. I'm just going to lift the audio off it. It's fine.
Poltergeists.
Right, people on the internet. Farewell.
Bye.
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 Poltergeist.